imagine there's a question he hasn't heard, right? Toronto historian Mike Filey is here with all the deets on Toronto. People must ask you stuff every time you go out in public.
And that's great. If they stopped asking me, then I would really wonder. But not only do they ask me, they tell me. You know, they tell me stories. For instance, the Great War, 100th anniversary is coming up. And there's some great stories involving Toronto and the Great War, of course. The Empress of Ireland sinking, the worst disaster in Canadians' history. The 100th anniversary is coming up on that on the 29th of May, and most people don't know more passengers died in that accident in the St. Lawrence River than died on Titanic. Wow. So it's a whole bunch of stuff, and if I can pass that on to Torontonians or Ontarians or whoever, and frequently they'll come back at me and say, yeah, but did you know that?
Well, that's good, because it fuels your columns, right?
Sure.
And your radio show, so it gives you good stuff to talk about. Now, the reason you're here is because coming up on the 24th and 25th, it's Gangways Open on Toronto's Waterfront.
That's correct. This is one of the most popular events the city has ever put on, and in fact, it originated in Paris. And it now is spread around the world, and that's where you take buildings and events and stuff that people don't normally get to see. You're turned away because it's important or old or something. For 2 days, the Saturday and the Sunday, 24th, 25th, they say, come on in. Things like the Don Jail, which has been refurbished thanks to Bridgepoint, the hospital people. You can actually go into the jail where the last 2 people to be hanged in Canada were hanged. Now that sounds bad, but it's also part of our history. And you can do that. You can go to the top of the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse over on the island. And there are so many other things. I mean, they should run it for 2 or 3 weeks rather than 2 days.
There's so much to do.
There's so much to do.
And you're going to be talking about the ferry service, right?
Yeah, I've got a couple things I'll be doing. On both days, I will be on board Trillium, which is the restored Toronto Island ferry boat, that the one that Babe Ruth, we think, took over to the island when he hit that famous home run ball of his back in September of 1914.
So cool.
It's a steam operated, and the steam engine will be thrashing around. And bring the kids, because kids don't know what steam is. They don't know what coal is. And so the whole idea is to bring back a part of Toronto's history when people would go to the island as, well, today they go to New York City or they go to Europe or wherever. In the old days, you would go to the island. I mean, that was the place to go and get away from the heat of the city. So I'll be on board chatting about that, and then I go over to Harbourfront Centre, to the Brigantine Room, and talk about the history of the waterfront in general.
Yeah. From
basically day one when Simcoe came in, and his wife came into the area and said, where's the Tim Hortons? In the early 1800s, and just talk in general about what happened along the waterfront over the years.
You've brought some pictures. What are these pictures of?
Well, that one gives you an idea of people going to the island. They would go to the foot of Bay Street on one of the old streetcars, and they'd catch one of the ferry boats, and there you see them in the background. And of course, the obvious thing is the coal, because they were stoked with coal, and all the little cars in the foreground. Yep, 10 cents to park all day. So parking has been a problem since the day one here in the city. Now
that one's not the Trillium, right?
No, Trillium is in the background, and you can tell, it's hard to tell.
Oh,
but
way back here?
Yes, yeah. Bluebell and Trillium ran tandem because they were the big boats. And the people were going to Hanlon's Point, and to get to Hanlon's Point...
It'll be one of those two.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because they were basically identical. We lost Bluebell.
And we almost lost Trillium.
And that's the way I first saw it. Tucked away at the island, ready to literally fall apart. And then a couple of people got together, Art Eggleton, the former mayor, Tommy Thompson, some people remember, Parks Department, and this is what we got out of it.
Okay, this is the before.
This is the before, and this is the now. And this is a picture that came to me from Paul Allen, who lives in a condo on the waterfront. I'm going to move in beside him because he has a great view of the harbor, and that's Trillium paddling its way around the bay. And as I say, 1910. That's the way they did it in 1910. And the other part of my presentation is simply to take people down to the waterfront. A lot of people think the condos have been there forever. Well, you know, they weren't there last week, a lot of them. Condo mania in this city has just totally changed the
style. So the water, the water is back here? Or the water?
No, the water's in the foreground.
Water's up here, okay.
And the prominent buildings in that view, the Royal York Hotel.
Oh, of course.
Which you can hardly see anymore. And
yeah, the Gardner runs right around here now, right?
Yeah, right along the rail corridor. So that's the way it looked back just after the Royal York opened in 1929. I found this photo fascinating because what it actually shows you is how they created the waterfront that we have today. With fill. I mean, there they are actually filling in at the foot of Sherburne Street, and it's out to here now. You know, the land has been pushed and pushed and pushed.
That's how they built the Leslie Spit, right?
Yes, yeah. They called it riprap. Now, today, it would probably go through all kinds of health reasons you couldn't do it and so on. But in those days, if it didn't move, you threw it in the water and you built something on it eventually. And we'll talk about some of the old buildings. This is the lighthouse that everybody, I think, is familiar with. If you come along the lake shore, that's the lighthouse that sits just south of the... Remember, old Molson Brewery used to be there, just as you go into the exhibition grounds. And we'll talk about some of the ships that were part of the waterfront. This is how you got to the island, or the island airport, I should say, because that's the old ferry boat. And in the background is Maple Leaf Stadium, where we played baseball before the Blue Jays came along. We played there until 1967. But this will all be part of the talk, I hope.
Where do you get these amazing photographs?
Well, good thing is that some people send them to me. They'll go through their collection as they're about to dispose of it and say, oops, I'll give that to Filey. You know, he'll find a home for it, which is great. This is an anomaly on the waterfront. This is an experimental vessel that was supposed to make its way across to the island by rolling. This is the roller boat. And the roller boat concept was that it would be impervious to wave action. So if you threw up quickly on a ship, you wouldn't on that. The problem is it didn't work. And one other thing, and this is also happening on the waterfront beside Trillium, which will be at the foot of Bay Street. This is the William Lyon Mackenzie.
We have about 30 seconds.
This is the fireboat that is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, fighting fires along the waterfront. Although this past year, it set a record, 102 consecutive days of breaking ice.
You're amazing.
That's a good one to go and visit the fireboat.
Yeah, walking encyclopedia. So waterfrontbia.com for all the details. When we come back, cooking with Estrella Tecaria.